Today I'm going to be taking you guys shopping at B2 Audio USA, and we're going to be checking out one of their budget-friendly items over there. This is the DVPE212, a dual 12-inch enclosure. It has a 35 Hz tuning, 1000 watts RMS, coming in at 280 bucks. And what we're going to be doing today is fully disassembling it, putting it in the trunk, and testing it. So if you'd like to know how this enclosure performs in a real-world scenario, sit back, grab yourself a drink or a snack, because this is going to be a long one. Today's unboxing is going to be a little bit different in the fact that this box is huge. As you guys can see, in relation to the trunk behind you, this thing right here is measuring over 30 inches in width. And that's because this is a dual 12-inch subwoofer enclosure, a loaded enclosure. And it is called, of course, the DVPE212. This is a B2 Audio product. This product was sent to us over by Big Jeff at bigjeffaudio.com. For some reason, Big Jeff think we don't have enough products to review over here, so he just keeps sending us stuff. And the more stuff he's sending, the more stuff we're going to review. And in case you guys are wondering where to find this, there you go. There's some in social media right there. So why am I being sent the DVPE212? This is supposed to be one of B2 Audio's more budget-friendly options for those who want to get into dual enclosures. So Big Jeff thought I would be a good candidate to actually present this to you. So today, we're going to be doing an unboxing of this, and we're going to put it inside the car and demo. So let's get to that. The first thing I like to do is give you guys some measurements, because if you're planning on picking this thing up, you actually want to know if it's going to be able to fit in your trunk or not. So let's see what the measurements are. For width, you're talking around about 33.5 inches. For depth, you're talking about 17 3/4 of an inch. And for the height, you're talking around 17 inches as well. And what you guys want to keep in mind is that the reason I'm giving you the external measurements is because you may not be able to fit this thing in your trunk if you're going to pick it up from UPS or FedEx or whatever the case may be. And that gives you a decision whether you want to, pay to get this thing shipped to the house or go pick it up in store somewhere. But enough of that, let's cut it open. Got me a lanyard, a little bit more self-branding by B2 Audio. We got a second box we got to open. It's always good to see this plastic on here. I know this is a little, to some people this may be minute, but the plastic is really, really important, especially with boxes, whether they're carpeted or not, that is made of MDF, which I suspect that this one here is made of, because I think this thing was shipped all the way from B2 Audio's headquarters across seas. So this is a Danish company, and you're putting things on ships and you're bringing them across the water. Humidity and other things can actually affect those products. So to see this plastic in here is a really good thing. It's dual boxed. It looks like it has some additional padding, because maybe this is a wedge, I don't know. Let's take this out and look at it. No, it's not a wedge, it's a straight back. It actually has protective pieces of plastic here on the corners as well. Not the thickest plastic, but they have it there. That's what matters. And the size of this box, just looking at it right now before I even pull it out, this thing should be compatible with a lot of trunks. Even the smaller eco-size vehicles may be able to fit this. But enough yap, let's get this out of the box and see exactly what we're working with. And here's a bit of a closer look at those plastic pieces that was actually on the edges, or the corners, I should say, of the enclosure. And you can see that some of them are a bit damaged. And this is kind of what you want, because when you think about it, the plastic took the damage and not the box itself. And could this plastic be a little bit thicker? In my opinion, I think it can be a little bit more robust than this, but it served the purpose. And that purpose was to sacrifice itself in regards to not, sacrificing the wood that the enclosure is made out of. And I think this is a good thing to see inside of any enclosure, because these things are a bit heavy, so a loading enclosures with the subwoofer in it plus the wood, you want to see something like this. And you know, when you see a manufacturer doing it the right way, you gotta give them that kudos for that. Wow. The pictures online doesn't do this thing any justice, man. I like the red, black, and white colorway. It looks pretty nice on here. It has dual stitching. Look at the stitching. The stitching is actually dual. It's a dual stitch, but that it's a red and white dual stitch. I like that. So they opted for the embroidery on top. That's pretty cool. That's actual stitching. That's not a paint job or some iron-on stencil. I mean, iron-on, what they call that stuff, that plastic? That's not what that is. This is actual embroidery. So that's pretty good. They went the extra mile on an enclosure that is this cheap. This is your budget option. So originally, when these things first came out, I think they had them priced at like $400 shipped. Nowadays, you can get them for $280, believe it or not, $280, and you can be up and running with a dual enclosure. The subwoofers that's installed inside of this enclosure are the Rave 12s. The Rave 12s are actually considered a shallow mount subwoofer. And I think they're retailing these days at around $80. Originally, when they first came out, they was around $100, but now you can get them for like $80. That's 20% off his MSRP. And it does look like we have, I want to say that's a hit that the MDF have taken right here. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. I don't know if that came from maybe at one point it was strapped or maybe something just slid right into it. And keep in mind that MDF is a soft material, softer than I would say than plywood, though it is more dense and offer a more warmer and deadened sound signature than plywood. Plywood is very hollow, the cheaper ones anyway, and it has a little bit of resonance to it that some people prefer. But in terms of MDF, looked like it may have taken another hit here. Maybe that's where they dropped it, but you can tell that it's still intact. Nothing is moving. It's just a bit misshapen, which is very customary for MDF enclosures, especially for those who have had to come quite some way, like this guy. But I'm digging it. Another thing I want to point out is the port. The port seems to be, it looks metal from a distance, but this is actually plastic. It's a plastic insert that they have here, and it actually has some bracing on the inside here. Those little brace pieces, which are also plastic. You can see I can bend them there. But like I said, this is a budget-friendly item. And to actually get a port in this design, I kind of like that design, to be honest with you. Is that a metal ring or plastic? I can't tell. We're gonna get all this stuff uninstalled and later on get a closer look at everything once we disassemble. It seems like they've opted to go with individual terminals on either side of the enclosure. I do know that the Rave 12 subwoofers are dual 4s. They're 500 watts RMS. Yeah, so that's what they did. They've opted for the dual push terminals here. So it kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility on how you want to wire it versus if it only had one set of push terminals. So yeah, we're gonna move right into the disassembly. No, another thing I want to point out about this enclosure, when I originally unboxed it, I thought it was a straight backed enclosure, but it is not. It's actually wedge shaped, as you guys can see here. So that'd be pretty cool if you want to get it behind the seat of a car. Like, for all those who don't know, that area back there is actually at an angle or a slant, one would say, because of the way that your back reclines on seats. Yeah, so let's crack it open, see what these subs look like. Before we crack it open, let's get some measurements so that you guys will know what you're getting yourself into here. In terms of height, we're right at 15 inches on height for this enclosure. 32.5 inches on the width. 14 inches on the top depth. Remember, this is a slant, so this is gonna be more shallow than the bottom. 14 inches on top depth. 16.75 inches on the bottom depth. So this is right here is 16.75 to 14. That's your difference in that. Just in case you guys wanted to know, let's get a little bit of measurements for the port as well. I know that's very important. 12 inches high, just shy of 2 inches. 1 7/8. 1 7/8. And you gotta be precise with that. I'm guessing with the insert out of here, it'll be 2 inches, you know, because these things here is probably, this material is probably 1/8 to 1/16 inches thick. So if you remove this, you can probably get a clean 2 inches by 12 inches, which give you a port area of around 24 inches. But as it stands right now, you're losing about 1/8 or so of port area on the width. So just keep that in mind if you guys are looking to purchase this. Of course, these measurements are just me eyeballing everything. If you guys want to get more specific, you can always follow the links in the descriptions below or scan the QR code that I shared with you earlier. Or you can just, you know, pause the video right now and just get these measurements for yourself. All right, let's move on with the disassembly. Yeah, this seems to be all Philips hardware, so I'm just gonna be using my Ryobi with my Bauer #2 and just get everything out of here. All right, two things I have to point out here that I was not expecting at all. This thing comes with a mounting ring. Who puts a mounting ring on an $80 sub? Wow, I don't know about y'all, but I'm really digging this. I didn't expect this at all, not at all. It's plastic, by the way, very thick though. Well, I should say it's very tall, and this is what it looks like internally. I didn't expect that. Another thing I did not expect was this. These are machine screws, which means that they may be using T-nuts here, some threaded T-nuts in the wood. Do you see this on a $300 loaded enclosure? Do you see any of this? I don't know. Let me get it out of the box before I get ahead of myself. But you only use machine screws with machine hardware, which T-nuts are. But anyway, I might be getting ahead of myself. Let me go ahead and get this out. And yes, I do see metal in here. It's hard to pick up on camera though. Let me see if I can get a light on. And yeah, there's T-nuts in there. Let's try not to blind y'all with this light. It's hard to pick it up on camera, but just trust and believe that, yeah, I'm seeing T-nuts in there, so that's a good thing. Kudos to B2 Audio, man, for taking a budget item like this and actually putting in some extra work with some premium hardware. I'm digging what I'm seeing here. Okay, so let's take a look inside of the enclosure. As you guys can see, it is carpeted. Well, I'm sorry. It does have some polyfill up in here to keep down resonance, unwanted resonance, I should say. And this is actually stapled to the actual enclosure. Another thing I want to point out is the speaker terminal over here. This is a very budget-friendly speaker terminal that they had here on the side. And the speaker terminal is soldered with wiring, as it is to the terminals of the subwoofer itself. This is actually soldered to the actual wires right here. So we won't be able to take those out without damaging something. Now, maybe later on we will, but I'm not gonna cut anything or tear into anything until I've actually had a chance to test the enclosure. So not going to be touching that right now. As previously stated, these are the Rave 12s. You see that? And these are dual 4-ohm subwoofers, which have been ran in parallel so that you have a 2-ohm load. 500 watts RMS at a 2-ohm load per subwoofer terminal cup. Okay, so you can do more wiring with this. You can wire this entire enclosure down to 1 ohm by actually running these separate terminals in parallel, or you can wire it up to 4 ohms. It's your choice, depending on your power preference. It looks like it has a linear roll spider on this subwoofer, which is pretty cool because linear roll spiders are actually supposed to be more fine-tuned for sound quality, traditionally anyway. You want to, have a little bit more sound quality, you get a linear roll spider. And if you want a bit of a SPL application, you would get a progressively rolled spider. But it seemed like the spider landing in there is pretty big enough to give this thing some decent excursion. Again, the Rave 12 was actually supposed to be a shallow mount subwoofer, and I'm looking at this, it doesn't look too shallow to me, but hey, in comparison, I guess, to the rest of their lineup, this would be a whole lot shorter of a stance than their other items. So I guess in the B2 Audio family, this would be considered shallow. From what I'm looking at, it looks like it has flat woven tinsel leads in there, and these are spade terminals with a stamped steel basket. Stamped steel basket, like you have a dual lug motor assembly here for the magnet. This, of course, is ferrite magnet right here. And this all screams budget. This is meant for you to be able to produce an item at low cost and focus more so on things that matter, like the appearance of it, the stitching of it. It looks like the cone is actually treated with something here. You get that money, and you can place that extra money you save into things such as the T-nuts and things of that nature. Give you a nice little port insert right there to make this thing look a lot more cosmetically pleasing. So this part of the subwoofer isn't going to be shown anyway. It was meant to be installed and not messed with, but of course over here on this channel, we're always going to disassemble these prefabs and just let you guys see exactly what you're paying for. And it looks to me like B2 Audio has done a great job with this. This seems to be 12 gauge wiring, I want to say, plenty for a 500 watt subwoofer. But with that all being said, I think we've seen enough here, and that's nothing else that I want to point out about the build quality of it, other than to say that I think this thing is definitely worth 80 bucks. I've seen a lot less for $80, I can tell you that. But anyway, let's get this thing reinstalled, and I want to take a look at this port piece next. All right, so here we go with this port piece. I must admit that the plastic on here is a lot thicker than I expected. Pretty thick plastic right there. Let's look down up in here. Yeah, nothing really to write home about here. It's a port, what can I say? This is more of a beauty panel than anything, is what this is. And I think it serves a purpose. Cosmetically, I like this. I think it's pleasing to my eye anyway. And I like the fact that they did add a little bit of I don't know if this is more cosmetic, these little things right here, or they actually serve as braces. Either way, it will cut down on any flex that it may have, and it's a nice touch to have. Like I said, thicker than what I expected, and it gives it an aesthetic effect. So I think that's what this is for, and it's serving its purpose. In case you guys wanted to take a closer look at the speaker terminal here, boy, it is in there. Whoever cut that hole out knew what they were doing. That's what you're working with right here. Spade terminals. You don't want to bend those like I just did. Don't pull it too hard. And you got the little push terminals on the outside. Once again, nothing to write home about. It's just a standard plastic speaker terminal, but in case you guys wanted to see what you was getting yourself into, this is what it looks like right there. Of course, if you wanted something a little bit more robust, you could just go over to budgetbasemerch.store and check out my store where we actually sell speaker terminal cups. This is an MDF variant of a single voice coil or a single subwoofer terminal cup to replace something like that. All you need is a 3-inch cutout and you'll get yourself up and running. This one right here, as stated previously, is made of MDF, so it pairs quite nicely if you have an MDF or any wooden box that you're trying to get a speaker terminal for. It has stainless steel hardware and it has everything you need in order to bolt those lugs down nice and secure. So once again, these right here come in single, dual, or 4-way configuration. Once again, you can find these over at the site, budgetbasemerch.store, and pick yourself up one. We now have you guys some options for pine, poplar, and red oak. So for all you guys out there using plywood for your enclosure builds, this would be a nice addition to your enclosure. And remember, you don't even need gaskets for this because this is the native wood that you guys are using as you're using the pine. And this is solid pine. This is not a pine plywood. This is solid pine, and it would make with your enclosures perfectly. And remember, these are able to be carpeted if you wanted to carpet them. You can paint them, you can stain them, you can do whatever it is you want to do with them. I personally apply some oil to one of mine, and I got that coming in an upcoming video to show you guys exactly how I finish my product. So just keep in mind that these are a more budget-friendly solution to the options that are already available on the market. And if you guys are interested, just go to the website and check them out. Once again, that's budgetbasemerch.store, my store. But there are 2 reasons that I'm doing this disassembly. One is to inform you guys of what's on the inside of this. Secondly is just a quality inspection. When an item like this is being shipped to you, you don't know the bumps and bruises that it goes through, and sometimes things can get dislodged during shipping. So you also want to go in and check your impedance on the subwoofers to make sure that they're in operational condition. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right here with my multimeter. We're going to put this on the impedance value right here, and it has an automatic mode where it actually finds those values for you. Let's get this connected. I simply have the leads connected to the actual push terminals, and now we're going to see exactly what it is that we're getting here. My bad, I had it pressing against the side of the box. And this is what you're looking for. You know it's a dual 4 ohm. You know it's wired in parallel, so it should be close to 2 ohms. It should read closer to 2 ohms of impedance than any other value. And right now it's reading 2.3, and that's what you want. And even though this one is still hangling and dangling, it's still reading close to what it's supposed to, which is around 2 ohms of impedance. So we're good to go. I think the subwoofers are fine. We're gonna go and get everything buttoned back up and get them installed. Another thing I did not point out for you guys was the actual port. This is an L-shaped port, and the port actually begins over here. Okay, it does have corner bracing. That's something else I did not point out that I should have. And I just wanted you guys to know that this is not like, you know, most prefab boxes, they have those very short ports. That's not the case with this enclosure right here. This enclosure is actually tuned to 35 hertz. That makes it a very musical enclosure. And remember that I pointed out about the subwoofers with that linear row spider on there, and how the linear row spider usually is associated with a sound quality product. This subwoofer right here, which is the Rave 12, actually has a sensitivity rating of, get this, 91 dB. And to put that into perspective, most subwoofers that I test are usually around the 80-something mark, right? Usually the more higher powered ones, the lower that sensitivity rating would be. So what does the sensitivity rating tells you? The sensitivity rating lets you know at how much power do I have to push into this thing in order to like get it moving? Typically it's 1 watt per meter. So that's 1 watt at 1 meter. How loud is the subwoofer in testing? And this one here measured at 91 dB. On average, subwoofers tend to be around, I want to say 83 to around 87, 83 to 87, somewhere up in there, you would see a sensitivity rating. So to see a 91 sensitivity on this sub right here makes me feel really good about it. I think it's going to be very musical, and I think it's going to be a good sub to listen to. Also, to point out the fact that, this thing has a frequency response down to 25 hertz. So that's another plus to this setup. Yeah, so there you have it. It has a 4-layer voice coil. This is a 2.5-inch voice coil, linear row spider, a 91 dB sensitivity, and an 80-ounce magnet. I think this is a pretty good buy for $80. Let me know what you guys think in the comment sections below. What subwoofer would you compare this subwoofer to, just looking at the specs on paper? All right, so now it's time for the SPL demo. I want to see how loud this little cheap subwoofer enclosure gets in the trunk of an Impala. The trunk of the Impala is 19 cubic foot, I should say 19 cubic feet, and right now it's about 1 foot from the trunk lid. So this should make an interesting bass demo, given the fact that it's loading off the lid. This gives its best chances at whatever SPL level it can get in the trunk. I'm going to be powering this enclosure with the B2 Audio 7800. This is from their Rage lineup. My doors are actually being powered by another Rage item, which is the Rage 1200.4. No, I am not going to be sending 8,000 watts through these 500 watt subwoofers. That just wouldn't make any sense, but we do want to get them moving. Their peak value is 1,000 watts, and we're going to exceed that just about a hair. We don't want to send too much power to them. Yeah, that's about it for now. And we're going to get in the front of the car and see what we got. All right, so right now we're going to be doing a bass sweep, and we're going to be monitoring our power with the SMD AMM1. That's an audio multimeter, and that's going to give us our peak value during this bass sweep. The purpose of the bass sweep is in order for you to find what your peak value is in your cabin, or what is known as cabin peak. And we're going to be recording our decibel scores with the mini bass meter by SPL Lab. This one right here is going to give you your peak value in decibels. This lets you know how loud you are inside of your cabin. I'm going to reset this. Right now it's in hold mode. It's going to hold whatever our peak value is, and we're just going to sweep from 150 to 20 hertz. Here we go. All right, so according to the AMM1, we got up into around 27 watts at 2.9 ohms of impedance. That's 3 times the rise of the impedance that we're wired to. We're wired to 1 ohm. We got a 123.9. That's not the value that we want. We want to know what frequency. The frequency we got that at is 36 hertz, which is good. The boxes has a tuning of 35 hertz. So to see 36 hertz as a peak is pretty good stuff. So we're gonna go and test at 36 hertz. We're gonna reset the Android application to 36 hertz, and we're gonna give it about 1,000 to 1,500 watts and see what our peak value is then. All right, so we got everything reset. Right now, the Android application is on 36 hertz. We're gonna hit play, and we're gonna increase until we see about 1,000 watts on the AMM1. 36 hertz. Woo, that sounds good. So that's 1,565 watts at 3.6 ohms of impedance. That's pretty cool. It didn't rise as much as I thought it was. So let's give this a stop. And we're gonna look and see what we got here. We got a 136.6 on the glass. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna roll the window down and we're gonna see what it does with the window down at the same power. Now keep in mind, when you do this, you lose pressure inside the cabin, and the speakers are tending, they can tend to unload on you a little bit more because that pressure is not keeping them tamed. So you have to be careful when you're doing tests such as this. Let's get everything reset and we're gonna try it again. All right, so we're gonna do another bass sweep, 150 down to 20 hertz with the door open. We need to find that new peak. So let's go. Here we go. It has to be loud enough. .20 hertz. So we got 118 watts at 3.1 ohms of impedance. Sounds a whole lot louder than 118, to be honest with you, but 91 sensitivity, I guess that's what you get for that. All right, so let's look at this. 127.6 at what frequency? 51 hertz. Wow, that's way up there. At 51 hertz with the door open. Should we do that? I don't want to burn them up. That's way out of the box tune frequency. I don't think it's worth it. I'm not gonna send, that's almost an octave. Well, it's not an octave. It's about like half an octave, a little bit over half an octave from its tune frequency. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna test at 51 hertz just to see a couple more dBs on the meter. I know better than that. The tune frequency of this box is 35 hertz. That's where the port is comfortable and you have more cone control. Too far out of that field and you're gonna burn something up. I'm not gonna do that. So I'm happy with the score that we got. This is not an SPL build. This is a budget-friendly build that'll get you there. These are brand new out of the box. I don't wanna burn them up, and I'm not gonna be testing them with nothing crazy like that. What I can do, I can drop tune frequency because it seems to me like they're stronger in the cabin at around 32 hertz. So that's what I'm gonna test at 32 hertz with the door open and see what kind of results we get here. I'm gonna disregard this right here. Sometimes you just have to use your common sense. And common sense is telling me not to do that. 32 hertz coming up. All right, I got it on 30 hertz, let's go. Woo! What was that, a Protect? The freaking car went off, goddamn. Man, that sounded good. I'm definitely finna do that again, hold on. All right, so here we go. Let me turn the AC off. And 32 hertz again, baby. Woo, that sounds good. All right, here we go. 32 hertz. All right, so that's 1,951 watts. That's way over what we wanted. And that's at 4 ohms of impedance. So we did have some rise there, 4 times the impedance. We got a 134.8. So I guess this setup here simply likes it with the car sealed instead of the doors open like this. So that's it. 136 right now, fresh out of the box. Subs are not broken in or anything like that. These subs were not meant to break SPL records. That's not what they are meant for. They are classified as shallow, a shallow subwoofer setup. And on top of that, it's the most budget-friendly option that B2 Audio have, and that's what they wanted for you. They wanted you to have a budget-friendly option and get you up and running very quickly with an all-in-one package. So there you have it. You have a 2.5-inch voice coil, 80-ounce magnet, a ferrite magnet at that, You have 91 dB of sensitivity, which means that they don't need a whole lot of power to get them there, and that linear row spider is only gonna sound better and better over time. I was actually surprised at how good they sound in the lower frequencies, because a lot of these prefab boxes don't do lower frequencies all that good. So I guess B2 Audio recognized that and just wanted to give you guys something with a lower tune frequency. Anyway, I already know what some of y'all are thinking. What if they was in a custom enclosure with a little bit more volume? What would they sound like with a little bit more port area? Luckily for you guys, I have just the enclosure for these two cheap subs. So it's 4.75 cubic foot before displacement. So you'll still have around 4.5 cubes to work with once you install these subwoofers. What would these guys sound like in an enclosure like that? Stay tuned for the next video, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be comparing the differences between a prefab enclosure versus that of a custom enclosure for these little cheap subwoofers. Let me know what you think in the comment sections below, and I'll see you there. Thanks for visiting the channel to help you simplify car audio. It's the Budget Bass here, and I'm out.